Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Really appreciate that. Thank you for subscribing if you subscribed recently. Anyway, I haven't made a video in over a week. I made a video and didn't work out. Battery issue with the camera. Anyway, a bunch of stuff has happened, of course. We've been dealing with snow here. I've been dealing with medical issues with my shoulder and stuff, and there's been other things come up. But it's Friday. I went to the Kimbra show, so why don't I just I'll do Kimbra and some new releases and yeah, some news and stuff like that. It's going to be a hodgepodge on television. So, first and foremost, I went to the Kimbra show on, it was Tuesday night in the, not the thick of, you could see my street it's been plowed, but, we're still dealing with it. The worst of it was yesterday, but they did overhype it a bit, but as the weather people tend to do. Anyway, that was Tuesday night at the Fine Line. I bought my tickets a few months ago. I had a reserved seat, etc. It's a good show. I have a t-shirt around here, but I don't have it to show, unfortunately. I should have brought it. I'll probably wear it maybe next week one day. If we get a little bit more back to normal without the weather issues and everything of the last week, and then my medical issues the week before. So, anyway, she did the entire new record, I'm pretty sure, the new Reckoning album. And I gotta admit that some of the songs from Reckoning that I'm not as keen into came across a little better. So, I've just inched a bit up on that album. Still not, like, obsessed with it, but, and she did a few others of her within her catalog. Not too much, unfortunately, but we did get Cameo Lover in the encore, which is it brings me to tears now, mostly because it's for nostalgia. The ending, that ba 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 ba. I feel like I'm transported every time I hear that song back to 2011, and my wife's interest and enjoyment of that song, and we played it at my wedding too, so there was kind of a combination of things. Reasons why I still get hugely nostalgic and emotional when I hear that song, and still a favorite on that album. She also did Settle Down, of course, which that song and Cameo Lover really do come across, have a new life live. That the Sing studio stuff, I always think of those songs for as much as from the studio versions, which are very almost kind of interpretive. The energy is really great on those. And she did from the Golden Echo, Love Is, what was the name of it? I should just pull up the set list here. I'll admit that I did sort of peek at the set list. I was thinking of not going as much as because of the weather and everything. And tonight the Prague tribute band, I didn't buy a ticket for, those Medley Kids is playing. Let's see. It was called Love in High Places. Yeah, which is not my favorite song off the Golden Echo, but it's still a decent track. And she did a couple songs from Version of Me, which is also from that album as well in the encore. She's talking about her personal life and her romantic life. She was definitely sort of confessing. It's kind of maybe her tour speech right now, Kimbra, but yeah, off of the last record, Top of the World, off of Primal Heart. I think that's the only one she did off Primal Heart. Otherwise, she did the entire new Reckoning album. I have to admit that a song like New Habit, I don't enjoy the whole track. I think it's even better live in that the little kind of climax, those big parts in it. Even though I'm still bugged by that bass line, and even hearing it live, it's sounds like it's pumped in, but the best moments on that song I really enjoy. The Way We Were is still my favorite track on Reckoning. That came across pretty good. Gun did, Replay. It worked. It was her and just a drummer and a keyboard player, and as opposed to the opening act, I'm forgetting her name, La something, who was just there with a computer and a microphone, and I just kind of I I honestly could not take her seriously. There was a female artist that opened for the Reina Kindo a few years ago at the Skyway Theater. I thought did something similar, but did it better. But what was her name? La something? Let's see. Opening for Kimbra 2023. I mean, the crowd liked her. You know, she's like multi-ethnic because like she's like from Canada, I guess, and then she's got I don't know what like a Latin background, I think. Kimbra Tour Day. It says there's her website. Doesn't say. I forget her name. I mean, she's got a name. It's like La something. Taishi, not La. Taishi. Yeah. So I can't remember the name of the artist. That's how memorable she was. But I just remember there was someone who opened for the Reina Kindo when I saw in the Skyway Theater. It wasn't. They had a guy at that show back in 2018 named Adrian Ballou, but he spelled his name Bellue. But that was not something I'm thinking of. But anyway. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good show. You know, some other shows coming up over the next few months. I'm seeing Hours in July. Mickey Dolenz and everything like that. But, you know, it's definitely a highlight. I haven't been to a concert since, I think it was Nick Mason back in October. And we went to the roller derby last month and been to a couple other sort of quasi-events. We didn't go to trivia last night because of the weather. We were supposed to do 80s trivia, so... Alright, so that's the review for Kimbra. Let's move on to the reviews for a couple other things. So, there's two things I've watched on Netflix over the last few weeks. The first one, let me just get through. I just finished watching. It's called Full Swing, and it's a PGA Tour season documentary series spotlighting different players in each episode. There's like, I think 8 episodes. Yeah, 8 episodes. And they don't cover everyone, but you know, most of the kind of in vogue players from the 2022 PGA Tour season, and they talk about the new Live Golf Tour and luring players away and everything like that, the controversy about that. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if this is a one-off or if they're going to continue depending on how successful it is, but, I mean, let's see, the players that they included, they had Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, who are like childhood friends and rivals and everything like that. That one was good. They had Colin Morikawa and Tony Finau. I really want Tony Finau to win a major at some point. I really like the guy, and he's a really talented player. He's a family man too, but his background's very you're rooting for him, the underdog story and everything like that. They had 2 tour rookies, Heath something. He's like East Indian, sort of like the first East Indian player actually to make the tour. Maybe I'm not sure. And this Mito Pereira, who's from Chile. That was the one I watched that one last night. The last episode features Rory McIlroy, which talks about how he hasn't won a major in 8 years, and he's sort of the face of the tour. And I was looking at some of the stats. He's won 23 tournaments, but Tiger Woods, of course, won his 82nd tournament a couple of years ago with the Tour Championship. He won the Masters that same year. He only needs one more tournament to actually have the most tour victories. Although it's kind of a misnomer, it's a little distinctive, the numbers are a little off because Sam Snead won some tournaments that was like a group play and some other stuff. That 82 tournaments is a little bit, it's a lot different environment when he won those. But I don't know if Tiger probably will find a way to win at least one more tournament, but we'll see. But Rory at 23, and he's 34 years old now. If he even averages 2 tour wins a year for 20 years, he'll be only at, 43 or whatever, or 50, what is it, 20 years to 40, yeah, I mean, he'd be in the mid-50s, or 63, if I'm doing the math right. Anyway, the odds of someone breaking that record are next to none. We're going to have someone who's a player who really wins a lot out of the gate and, is that dominant, but... I don't know, we'll see. But who else did they feature? And I'm trying to remember. Let's see. They showed Matt Fitzpatrick, who I didn't realize he's been playing for like 10 years. He looks so young, though. He still has braces and everything. But he won the U.S. last year, I believe, U.S. Open. So that was good. I mean, as a guy, I definitely be rooting for. think some of the other guys. Anyway, it was a really good series. Being a fan of the PGA Tour and golf, and like watching the Genesis Invitational, which used to be like the LA Open at Riviera, the tournament Tiger host, and he played in last and made the cut somehow. He was at like 1 over after Friday, but yeah, I mean, I love golf. You know, I know it's not like the most popular sport, but it's sort of, I avoid sort of the disappointment of my team and all the complaints from the fan bases with golf. That's one thing I love about it. But the live stuff, you know, they showed Dustin Johnson and Ian Poulter, who's like the same age as me. Actually, it's weird to think, but both going to live, and I can understand why Poulter did. And Brooks Koepka, who's, you know, after watching him in that, I'm still a fan. I acknowledge his talent and dominance in some ways, because he won 4 majors in a 2-year period. But, you know, he's doing things just what's best for him and his family to go to live. I don't know. I really hope the live tour. I used to like Greg Norman growing up, but I hope the live tour dies, honestly. But we'll see. So, yeah, we got the whatever Honda Classic this week, and the field isn't even nearly as good as the field last week at the Genesis Invitational, but I try to watch. I watch all the majors, you know, as much as I can. I'd like to play myself. It's just my back and, you know, time and everything. But I was vowing, you know, I actually did some shoveling last night, and my blood sugar was really low. So it's kind of speaking to doing more physical activity, even like going hit balls at the range, could make a difference for my blood sugar. But so okay, the second film that series I watched on Netflix was the Bill Russell series called just Bill Russell Legend, which I've always been a Bill Russell fan per se, you know, post career, because I obviously wasn't alive even when he was playing. But he's the greatest winner in North American or American sports history, in 11 championships in 13 seasons. The stuff that documentary series showed, I mean, they showed his upbringing, you know, how he was dominant. He never really played against George Mikan. I think the last year the Minneapolis Lakers were here, he was playing. That was his rookie year or something like that. So he never really got to play against George Mikan, unfortunately. That would have been like passing the torch in a way. And of course, they show a lot on his experience in the civil rights movement and the racism he dealt with. A lot more than probably let people know. They had a lot of players, of course, talking about that, and then sort of his dominance, the way he played. He wasn't an offensive stalwart, but he didn't need to be as a basketball player. But as a civil rights activist, at some points he didn't want to talk because it wasn't really his place. He wasn't dealing with it as much as people in the South and everything. And you know, as a black coach, he was the first like professional sports black coach in North America. So he was really a pioneer in multiple ways, not just as an athlete, but just in the world of sports itself, and just, you know, the stuff he dealt with. And he ended up moving back to San Francisco, but he actually was born in like Georgia, I believe they said, Georgia or Louisiana. But he ended up going to college at San Francisco. He ended up moving out there and then going to college. San Francisco was the only school that would sign him. It's just weird. You know, they had a limit of how many black players could be on a team. It was just a totally different environment. The way basketball was played and the way professional sports were. They didn't mention Jackie Robinson, though. It's kind of weird. I wonder if he ever met Jackie Robinson. But yeah, he's an admirable person, extremely successful and accomplished athlete and basketball player, and just athlete in general. But, you know, it's great if you like Bill Russell and you like the history of the NBA, especially the history, you know, going back. If you don't learn about history, you can't really talk about the way things are. There's too many people that watch the NBA right now that don't, I get the impression that don't really think about history. You know, maybe there's like back in my day, you know, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I think of the NBA for that period most. But to me, the NBA now seems like it's every game's a three-point contest. And the low post, the center position and the low post is it's been reduced. It's not essential as it once was. You know, of course, the Timberwolves have Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's a three-point shooter. But so yeah, thumbs up, very big thumbs up on the 2 episodes that they have on Netflix, Bill Russell Legend. So there was one other documentary my wife and I did watch on Dionne Warwick, which is great. I didn't realize how extensive her career was. I've always known her for That's What Friends Are For. But how far she goes back, or working with the late Burt Bacharach, and we were watching this literally a few days after Burt Bacharach passed away, R.I.P. Kevin Gilbert was really influenced by him. But yeah, I mean, she was a pioneer of her own, you know. Of course, she's Whitney Houston's cousin. You can see how, you know, it's in the blood, the gospel element, but where she ended up singing these really sophisticated orchestral pop songs. You know, the whole thing with, ended up like, well, they did talk a little bit about her time with the Psychic Network, and I always thought of her, that's what's under for, and then that particular thing, and you know, I don't know, they didn't emphasize it though. It's like, because you know, those late night call lines that happened a lot in the 90s, it's like they were just a bunch of scammers and everything like that, and you know, you believe it, they can speak to psychics. I love the TV show Psych, and you know, I can speak from beyond, you know, the grave and all this stuff, and John Edwards and Miss Cleo, and but you know, she was, I guess she had filed for bankruptcy, but you know, like the money for That's What Friends Are For, she donated to AIDS research, which is remarkable. She's still probably being credited for that. So, but yeah, it's if you like Dionne Warwick, it's definitely a documentary to check out. Even if you're just a mild or, you know, familiarity, just, you know, Dionne Warwick. She didn't get in the Rock Hall. She got nominated a couple years ago, but she probably should be. If she should be in, that so many people should be in. But it added a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about her. I got to understand a lot more about her career, her background. It kind of reminded me a little bit of what Tina Turner went through, but not to maybe the same degree, but she crossed boundaries, much like Bill Russell, where she was appealing to, you know, audiences of, you know, all, you know, not just black audiences, but white audiences as well. So anyway, so that's what I've watched recently. I need to, well, Party Down, the first episode of the third season, the new season, is up on demand right now. It's on Stars Network tonight. It's going to be on the next how many weeks? It's like next month and a half. And then next week, The History of the World Part 2 is going to be on Hulu, so I'm looking forward to both of those. So a bit of other news of sorts. Kevin Gilbert's estate released the next two items in maybe the last two, I'm not sure, of the KMG archive. Of course, I've got the first two right here. I'm going to be getting those in the mail probably in the next few days. The two that they issued are, one of them is NRG. It's called Energy, or not Energy, sorry, Energy. One of them is Kaviar, rather. Sorry, my bad. Kaviar, the KMG Archives Volume 3, Kaviar demos, outtakes, and alternative mixes. And this is like 12 or 13 tracks. I mean, it's demos. It's a lot of the stuff from the Kaviar Sessions release. There's one track called Madonna's Fart, which of course, in The Shaming of the True, the song Fun, Kevin mentions Madonna farted and how it's art and that kind of thing. Of course, Madonna connection with Toy Matinee, and Queen of Misery also was written about her. But that's one that's not really been released. The Fear. There's a few of the Strong Enough version, the Spandau vocal. That was, of course, there's the other one that came out. I want to say it was on. Maybe it hasn't come out. It's the Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Anyway, there's a different version of it. I forget which other 80s band. He's basically remixing Sheryl Crow's song "Strong Enough," doing a version of it. I don't know, when I get it, I'll have to talk more about it and show it and everything like that. There's two versions of Picnic. A couple of these tracks I know ended up on soundtracks. One was for My Teacher's Wife. Not My Teacher's Wife. Whatever that was called, that soundtrack he did with Tia Carrere, I forget, one of the London, Jason London, wasn't it? Teacher's Pet, I forget the name of it. You know, so there's samples up online on the Pop Plus One site that you can listen to little clips, of course, and then there's a trailer teaser on YouTube for both this one and the other one that got released on Tuesday, Thud Acoustic, which I'll have to listen to this. This one is only six tracks. These are acoustic versions of, there's 6 songs from Thud. When You Give Your Love to Me, Goodness Gracious, Joytown, Tears of Audrey, Waiting, and Song for a Dead Friend. Goodness Gracious and Joytown, of course, they're released on the Nuts Bolts compilation, and the Thud 20th Anniversary Book Edition have acoustic versions of both those songs. I inquired to Bruno on one of the message boards about this, and he says these are different versions. So, I mean, I didn't even bother listening to the clips. I kind of like just want to listen to it anyway. So, but you know, me getting those, I'm still excited for that. And there's going to be, of course, a Kaviar vinyl. It's going to include like you know, there's more Kaviar stuff coming, and I guess this May there's going to be a bunch more stuff coming. So, eventually we're going to get the Shaming of the True multi-disc. That's the sort of the last piece at some point. So, I didn't show this on video. I got this in the mail, that thing, Intramural, This Is a Landslide, which includes a track called Rocket, featuring TJ Penzone from the band Men, Women, Children Who Are Like. It also includes a track which has the singer from Jordan Nagler from Velveteen, kind of like Never White Lights, called Queens of Comparison. This came out in, I think, 2007, the year after the Men, Women, Children album. Men, Women, Children released one album. It was like very catchy, sort of dance, pop, punk, little proggy elements, little 70s elements. Anyway, loved it. My wife even enjoyed it right before I ever met me, but then they never did anything else. I don't know what TJ Penzone's been doing recently. I'd love to find out, because I really like him as a singer. Fortunately, I didn't pay a lot of money for it, thankfully, but it's nowhere online. A couple of songs are on YouTube, but the whole thing, including the track with TJ Penzone, Rocket, couldn't find it. But it's a lot of overproduced electronic stuff. So, you know, you can't win them all, but I didn't spend an arm and a leg trying to buy it. But yeah, I could show it, I suppose. I thought it was going to be sort of in the indie-tronica vein, which I suppose it is a little bit, but you know, there's probably a reason why you can't find it online, because it wasn't that well received, unfortunately. There's like one or two sites you can buy a digital version of it. So, yeah, it's like a poster or something like that. So, I don't know. I'll give it another go and see if it's changed. I did rip it onto my computer and everything like that. I should put it in my flash drive in my car and everything. But Intramural, I don't know, it's one guy, you know, This Is a Landslide. So, okay, some other news. Hotel of the Laughing Tree. Hotel of the Laughing Tree got in touch with me a couple months ago saying they have a new record. They haven't done a record since 2015's New Sundown. What is it called? New Rub Sundown. New World Sundown, which was their second album. I love their album from 2011 to death, Tearing Everything After. One of the best records of the last decade. One of my maybe top 100 albums of all time, easily. Anyway, I've always been like, I've talked about it and reviewed it, and they like got in touch with me, and so they contacted me the other day, and they have a new album coming out. It's probably coming out in April. I don't want to spill too many beans, but just to say, I'm very optimistic about it, to say the least. I'm not going to give any more details about it, but when it's available, it's going to be on their socials. But they had an album they released of like extras called Hotel Junk Box a few years ago, and they put out a bunch of EPs. But I can tell you that being a fan, maybe I have my own bias. I'm pretty excited about it. So that's what I'll leave until I want to give more details. But yeah, it's great to see them back, because it's the COVID album and stuff like that. The House of Fools is supposed to be doing the same thing, but it may not be happening now. But you know, a band that I've loved. I was obsessed with them for a few years. Right when I met my wife, actually, in 2011, especially. So 2010 into 2011 and 2012. Then there's been a couple albums that have come my way. Well, I mean, the one specific. Okay, so the band Mew singer Jonas Bierry is a guest on this project. Let me see if I can find it. It's called Music for Cities or something like that. Great Cities. If I can, no, Miracle. Actually, I know I could find it. The guy was on the podcast. That's the Mew X podcast. That's what I need to do here. Spotify will not fail me. Mew Yeah, there it is. Here we go. Alex Maiolo, which is, I guess he's American, but it's called Themes for Great Cities. I gotta remember that. So, and the album is, this is like the second album. It just came out a few weeks ago. It's the second album. In fact, if I'm listening to it enough, I'll probably want to do a separate video for it. Music for Great Cities, or Themes for Great Cities, the City of Tallinn. Is that what it's called? Anyway, I've listened to it about 2 times or a little more. Themes for Great Cities, there it is. Yeah, and I'm really liking it. It's an ambient sort of cinematic album. Themes for Great Cities, Tallinn, Tallinn, which, I don't know if that city, I've listened to some of the podcasts with this gentleman who was with the MUX podcast. I listened to maybe the first half hour, and he was talking about Estonia and stuff like that. So Estonia is near Denmark and everything like that. I mean, he's American, but he's done music with people from Europe and got in touch with Jonas and some other people. But anyway, this music is not, I wouldn't compare it to Mew, although I can understand why someone who likes Mew might like it. It's instrumental music, but it's not just instrumental. It's sampling, like field recording kind of stuff. It's a little bit like some of the River Empire stuff. It's not bluegrass music. It's not classical music exactly, but field recordings. But then they've kind of taken those recordings and manipulated them. It's very cerebral, very original. A little bit like that project that Ben Cooper did, Clone. Not the Clone that people are talking about in the prog metal scenes with a K. This was C-L-O-N-E, which was very sort of inventive isn't the right word, environmental, kind of using technology to sort of create things, but it doesn't sound completely soulless like some electronic music comes across to me. But I don't think there's a lot of vocals, if any, having listened to it sort of in the background over the last couple days. I haven't listened to it all in one sitting, unfortunately, but yeah, I think it's a little bit of a sleeper. I would describe it as ambient slash cinematic, but it's a lot of, it's like, it's sort of less is more in some ways. I don't know how long this album is. Let's see, 36 minutes. So it's like, yeah, it's less is more. It's very moody. It's a little bit also, the other one I compared to with Vanavi. I mean, yeah, Vanavi is like a new agey ambient artist himself. So I could see that it's maybe closest to that genre of sorts, but that's still not fully maybe describing what he's done with this. It's a very creative project, and normally with ambient music like Tangerine Dream I like, and some new age stuff in small doses, but I'm not really obsessed with it. I don't hate it. I just never gotten totally. But occasionally, like when Vanavi came out, when that album from 2019, the debut album, I was won over by it. There's a lot of emotion in this album in a similar way, but again, it's I guess it's for the right mood too. But considering I've only listened to like 4 albums this year so far that I've caught, my Kimbra, of course, and Black Belt Eagle Scout. This is right in the mix. So Themes for Great Cities. The album is Themes for Great Cities, Tallinn. I don't know if it's going to be known as Tallinn. So this Alex, again, I'll get his name if I can get his name right. Oh, what is your name? Alex Maiolo. So, and I guess he lives in like somewhere in like North Carolina. But so I think that's about it. You know, again, it's been like a week and change. But I'm trying to do the song list. It's just been procrastination and watching these documentary series and dealing with my shoulder and the snow and everything like that, and everything going out with the weather. But hopefully next week we get a little bit closer back to normal, and I'll try to do some of the list, the Dream Theater song list, the 1993 song list. Those are sort of the immediate ones, and then there's some other stuff. There's some stuff that has been announced, and the Childish Japes album is going to come out at some point, but I'm getting the Warning vinyl, the Air. I just ordered it, the autograph version. They put up 350 more copies, so that will be coming in the mail at some point. My Mask of the Phantasm vinyl, New Axial Age, is supposed to be coming at some point too, because I've talked to Omar on Facebook about that. So I'm going to have stuff to show. So besides the Kevin Gilbert, you know, KMG archive stuff like this. So, but again, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.